Hello, my friends. It's Sabrina. It's been a hot minute since I have done a video on here, and here I am. I had a house guest for 4 days, and we had a great time. But if you've ever had a house guest, you know that it like kind of throws you off your gig. You have all sorts of fun, and then you need a couple of days to recover. So, anyway, tonight, I am going to talk about Mercury retrograde. So, I couldn't do any of these presentations with my friend here because she calls this voodoo woo woo. So, astrology is not voodoo and it's not woo woo, it's actually extremely technical. So, I have my barrage of whiteboards. I love them. So, the first whiteboard I'm going to pull out are the important dates of Mercury retrograde. So, here you go. So, here are the dates of Mercury retrograde. I am making this video on Monday night, the 23rd of February. So, it says on here the shadow period, which is 212 to 225. So we are in the shadow period right now. I'm going to tell you what that means. Don't worry. The retrograde period is 226 to 320. Seems like forever. Just wait. Okay. And then the shadow period's there again from 320 to 49. Now, let's talk just real quick about what the shadow period means. So every degree, every sign in astrology has 0 to 29 degrees. So, for example, Pisces, we're going to be talking about Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So, the astrological sign of Pisces in 2026 starts on the 20th of February. So, that would be 0 degrees of Pisces. February 21st is 1 degree of Pisces, the sun. We're talking about the sun. Okay. And then the 22nd of February is 2 degrees of Pisces, 23rd of February, 3 degrees of Pisces, which today is the 23rd. So the sun in the solar system is at 3 degrees of Pisces. And this goes the whole way up into 29 degrees of Pisces, which is on 320. And then 321, it goes to 0 degrees of Aries. And then 1 degree, 2 degree, etc. So depending on what your sun sign is and what day of the month it is, that's how you figure out what degree it is. And that is important because different planets hit different degree points and they activate things in your chart. So the other thing that it is important is for you to at least know where the planets are and what degree points they are in your chart, even if you have not had a chart done professionally. Because then you can kind of say, oh, I know my Mercury is 15 degrees of Capricorn. And you know that. So when you have someone come on that does videos and they say something is going on at 15 degrees of Capricorn, for example, you know that you're going to be affected in that department. Okay. So what I'm going to talk about right now are the degrees that Mercury is retrograde and this shadow period and why that's kind of important. Now, many years ago, when I started to first study astrology, 40 years ago, I don't remember hearing about this shadow period of Mercury retrograde. That to me, now maybe I wasn't paying attention. That could be because I kind of studied astrology. It's always been on my radar, but I had other things to do. You know, I built 2 businesses from scratch and I moved across the United States and all sorts of other things. So maybe that shadow period they had always talked about, but I only remember hearing about it in, it seems like the last decade, so to speak. That could be my fault. Okay. So, what the shadow period is. So, first of all, what Mercury retrograde is. Mercury retrograde appears in the sky, in the solar system, because of its positioning to kind of slow down, stop, and go backwards. But it is an optical illusion because of the way the planets circle around in the solar system around the sun. So it doesn't actually stop and hit reverse and go backwards. It appears that way. And it kind of makes a lot of things kind of stop and go backwards. And that's what Mercury retrograde is famous for. But I want to talk about the good points of Mercury retrograde once I talk to you about what all this is. So, in the sky right now, Mercury is in the sign of Pisces. We're going to talk about Mercury. We're going to talk about Pisces. We're going to talk a little bit about what Mercury in Pisces has potential for, and then what happens during Mercury retrograde and what do we do about it? Those are the important things, okay? So, first of all, Mercury goes officially retrograde depending on where you are on the planet. I'm in the United States. I'm on Mountain Time. I'm in Phoenix. It goes retrograde on the 26th of February. Now, that might be the 25th of February for some of you, okay? And it stays retrograde and it keeps kind of rewinding until March 20th. Mercury goes retrograde at 26 degrees of Pisces. By the time it stops going backwards, it's at 8 degrees of Pisces. So, what the shadow period is, let's take a look at these dates. The shadow period is from the 12th of February till the 25th of February. So, we're in that shadow period. So, what this means is on the 12th of February, Mercury was right around 8 degrees of Pisces. And on the 25th, the day before Mercury goes retrograde, it's around the 22 degrees of Pisces. So then you're going to see this shadow period down here. So when Mercury rewinds and goes backwards, okay, it's going to start on the 26th-ish of February at 22 degrees of Pisces. As it rewinds and goes backwards, by the 20th of March, it ends up at 8 degrees of Pisces. This is 8 degrees of Pisces. This is about 22 degrees of Pisces. So now as it starts to move forward again on 320, from 320 up until about April 9th, it is traveling from 8 degrees of Pisces to 22 degrees of Pisces. So we already went over 8 degrees to 22 degrees of Pisces. Mercury allegedly stops, does that little rewind, and goes from 22 degrees of Pisces and it backs up to 8 degrees of Pisces while it's retrograde. So it is revisiting those degree points, okay? So why this is super important for us is we've got a lot going on in the galaxy right now. We've got a lot going on in the cosmos. We have eclipse, we have Saturn and Neptune at the world point and stuff. We have Uranus and just all sorts of stuff going on, okay? We're going to add Mercury retrograde in here. So we just had that almost total solar eclipse, 28 degrees of Aquarius. So we had our new intentions. Okay. So you set your new intentions, you put those forth. I want to A, B, C, D, E. So now we go along, and now Mercury is retrograde, and we're like, oh, damn it. What does that mean? So, what's going to happen now? All those intentions that you just set, and those new beginnings, and those seeds that you planted, you are going to revisit during Mercury retrograde. Okay? So from 8 degrees of Pisces to 22 degrees of Pisces, Mercury's been moving forward up until about the 26th. And I'm saying about because it depends on where you are, the time change. And, Australia is 16 hours in front of us, so it's going to be a little different and so on. So it moves forward to 22 degrees of Pisces, and then it's going to hit the brakes, rewind, and it's going to go back over those degree points the whole way back until 8 degrees of Pisces. So what you do when Mercury's retrograde is you revisit things. You do this rewind. You do this revisitation. You do this recalibration, and you take a look at all those things that you started to plan, and then all of a sudden Mercury goes retrograde. So then when Mercury goes direct at 8 degrees of Pisces on March 20th, it is going to march over all those same degree points in Pisces again. Okay, so you went through those degrees, you backed up and revisited them, and now you're ready to actually take this mercurial action forward. So that's what the shadow period is. Now, what they say allegedly is that you shouldn't make any big decisions during this period. So you're looking at a time period from February 12th until April 9th. So basically 2 months, you're not supposed to make any big decisions, particularly things like buying cars and houses and new computers and new electronic devices and Xboxes and, investing in crypto and Bitcoin and techie things. That's 2 months. Okay. That's a long time. All right. So the best advice I could give, unsolicited advice, but here it is if you can avoid doing anything super important, signing contracts are included, absolutely. If you can avoid the time period of like that 2-month time period, February 12th to April 12th, just to simplify, that would be awesome. But you know what? Life goes on, and you got to do what you got to do. I bought a car during Mercury retrograde, and it was fine, but I had replaced another car, and I guess that's how I got away with it. This was many years ago. It was okay. So what I would say during the actual Mercury retrograde, 25th, 26th of February, coming up in 2 days until March 20th, if you can avoid making any major decisions or buying any important electronic travel devices, airline tickets, booking vacations, if you can not do it then, great. But if you do have to do it then, you're going to dot every I, you're going to cross every T, and you're going to read those contracts completely, fully, and then you're going to read them again. Okay, maybe 3 times, because we go forward, we go backward, we go forward. So that warrants reading any contracts very clearly and reading them 3 times. Okay, so that's what the shadow period is. So we are technically right now in Mercury retrograde shadow. So if you hear you hear people talking about that, that's what it means. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about what Mercury is and why this is a big deal. So Mercury rules the sign of Gemini. Gemini's talky, chatty, communicative, likes to get all the details, can gossip a little bit. Okay, can be very witty, very charming, very lovely, super smart, very good with computers and all that stuff. So let's talk about what Mercury is. Then we're going to talk about Pisces. And we're going to talk about then what it happens when Mercury's in Pisces and it goes retrograde. Okay. So let us begin with Mercury. Okay. So if you look back in time and you go through mythology, Mercury was the messenger of the gods. Specifically, Mercury was the son of Jupiter. And what Mercury did is did all the communication between the divine and us mere mortals. Okay. So Mercury was a courier. It was revolving around trade, commerce, travel, technology. Mercury could be a trickster. Mercury was also in charge. I'm sorry about that glare. Damn that glare. I thought I fixed it. Here we go. So Mercury was also in charge of tricksters, thieves, gamblers. Mercury was very agile, witty, quick moving, fun, social, charming, all those things that you need to be. So Mercury was kind of your super uber duper special Uber driver, okay? Knew everybody. So this is what Mercury is all in charge of. Lots of stuff. So this is the reason why when Mercury goes retrograde, you want to make sure that your communication is clear. There's a lot of mishaps when Mercury is retrograde. In Gemini rules, Gemini and Mercury go hand in hand, but also Mercury rules Virgo. Virgo is extremely detail oriented, analytical, wants to get everything right. So we're going to see Mercury is in Pisces. Now that's Mercury in Pisces is what's considered Mercury being in its detriment. All that means is that Mercury is in the opposite sign of the rulership. So Mercury is in detriment in Pisces because Pisces is the opposite sign of Virgo. So when you hear astrologers talk about Mercury being in detriment, they mean the opposite sign of the rulership. And Mercury is also in detriment in Sagittarius because Sagittarius is the opposite sign of Gemini. So when you have Mercury in its sign of detriment, which is Pisces, it doesn't function super well. It's not at optimum, so to speak. So why is that? Let's take a look at Mercury in Pisces. I love my whiteboards. Aren't they great? All right. So Pisces is ruled by the planet Neptune. Neptune was the god of the seas. Pisces is a water sign. It's mutable. It is dreamy and sensitive and psychic and spiritual and intuitive and flowy. It wants to dissolve the boundaries. It wants to feel. It doesn't want to think. Virgo wants to think and forget the feels. Okay. Gemini wants to think also. Very logical. Gemini is an air sign, which is all about logic. Swords in tarot. Okay. Pisces is cups in tarot. Feelings, water, emotions. Okay. So there can, with Pisces, there can be illusion, delusion, there can be addiction. Pisces rules big pharma, behind the scenes. Let's hide in the 12th house stuff. 12th house is kind of the hidden house. So you've got Mercury that's normally in Gemini, very sociable masculine air sign. And now it's in the opposite sign of Virgo and Gemini in Pisces. So now we have a little bit of potential confusion, illusion, delusion, more feeling than thinking. The logic is not necessarily there. So Mercury in Pisces can get in a little bit of trouble on its own just based on that. Now, I have absolutely nothing against Pisces, I have to tell you. Most of my friends are Pisces and Cancers, with a few Taurus scattering in there and a Gemini here and there. Water signs. I have 2 cats that are Pisces. I've had 2 cats that were Pisces before I got these 2 cats that were Pisces. So I love Pisces. I find them absolutely adorable, funny as hell people. but they are ruled by Neptune, and that is confusion, illusion, delusion, all of those things. So, what happens when you have Mercury in Pisces and now we have Mercury retrograde? I have yet, ladies and gentlemen, another whiteboard. So, here we go. So now we've got Mercury in Pisces. Okay. So Mercury, the planet of communication in Pisces, would rather zone out and feel instead of be logical about it. They want to take the dreamy view of communication. They love the rosy colored glasses. Don't we all? Especially these days. Okay. Sometimes Mercury and Pisces can talk a lot and not really say anything. And this is, like I said, I love you, Pisces. This is nothing against you. It's just kind of the way it goes with Neptune there. So there can be mistakes, there can be miscommunication. This is with it retrograde. But, you know, in general, Mercury and Pisces is going to take a whole different way of communicating, a lot more soft, sensitive, not logical, but it's going to be feeling. They're going to feel their way through the communication. So during Mercury retrograde, there can be mistakes and miscommunications. There can be delays, rerouting, and everybody throwing their hands up in the air and saying whatever. Whatever is a really good Mercury and Pisces word. There can be forgetfulness, which is going to require forgiveness, which Pisces is super great at forgiveness. So this is going to be involved around technology, the internet, travel, timing glitches. So this is why I say on here, dot every I, cross every T, and double check any contract. Now, as some of you may know or may not know, I run an appointment-based business. I've been a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor and a teacher for 40 years. So for me, any appointment changes, I'm going to have to really look at those and make sure I got it straight. And now what's coming up in the midst of this mess, and I work on 4 time zones at least, more like 5 time zones, we have the time change. Now I'm in Arizona. I don't change the clocks, but everybody around me except Hawaii does. So I've already put my plan in place for the time change, which is on March 8th. I've already set that schedule up, and I know that Mercury is going retrograde. So I'm just going to sit back and see what happens, because what else are you going to do? So this is one of the I would say the key word here. And I really like this word, and I'll tell you why I really like this word. When I moved from the Boston area to New Mexico 13 years ago, I was a type triple A, crazy. Everything was an emergency. Getting to that stop sign was an emergency, and I'm like, you have got to cool your jets. This you're gonna die if you keep living like this. So I jokingly said that I needed to move to New Mexico, to the land of manana, so I could say whatever and actually mean it. So the key word for this upcoming Mercury retrograde in Pisces is whatever. And I think that because the world is so crazy, we are all going to just have to take a deep breath, sit back, and say, whatever, and decide what is really super important during this Mercury retrograde. Because what you should be doing during a Mercury retrograde is all the words. Okay? So You are rewinding, like I talked about during the shadow period. So we are rewinding over this period of time, the last couple of weeks that we had in February, which included that ring of fire partial solar eclipse in Aquarius. Okay, so we had that going on. We're rewinding and taking a look at Saturn and Neptune that are now at 0 degrees of Aries. So not only are we rewinding, so when I say we, I'm talking about the collective we. So what you're going to see happen, now remember, I don't predict, I say there is potential for, and it's already happening. We're going to see several things being revisited that just happened over the last couple of weeks, okay? Worldwide. So today, the 23rd, we're almost at Mercury retrograde. Mercury, hello, rules tariffs. So we just saw the Supreme Court make a decision about tariffs. Yeah, they're illegal. Hello. And now we're seeing, he is going to put tariffs 10%, 15%. So you're going to see the issue of tariffs revisited over this Mercury retrograde. So what also happens during Mercury retrograde is decisions you make during Mercury retrograde, you may have to reverse them when Mercury comes direct. Okay? So this is why this is a super opportunity to review what has been going on over the last couple of weeks. Is that the direction you want to go? You have 3 weeks to think this through. Then you've got another, 2 weeks of the shadow period to say, okay, I'm thinking about this. Maybe I don't want to do that. So Mercury goes direct, and then you've got another couple of weeks, and you need to like kind of sit back and see how things play out. And then you're going to know. Come the middle of April, you're going to know what you want to do to move forward. In the middle of April, let me just tell you, let's just deal with Mercury retrograde now before I talk about the middle of April. But the middle of April, oh boy. Anyway, that's down the road. So this opportunity with Mercury retrograde is a time to rewind, review, reconsider what's been going on the last couple of weeks for you. Now, with that eclipse energy comes in before the actual eclipse gets here. So, on the 17th of February, smack in that shadow period of Mercury retrograde, you probably felt some things building up. Then there's the eclipse. You plant your seeds. So you go on and you got your hoe out and you're tending those seeds. And now all of a sudden Mercury's retrograde and you're like, what the hell? I just made this decision. Now you get to think about it again. Okay? And this is not just you. You're going to see all of this play out on the world stage. You're going to see all of these things. You're going to see delays. You're going to see flight delays. Hopefully it's not drones that turn out to be party balloons in El Paso again. What a mess. Anyway, so there's potential for flight delays, train delays, delays of any sort of transportation. Because remember, these are the things that Mercury rules. It rules trade. Okay, so look at the stock market. It could go ballistic. And because Mercury was a trickster also, that smart little shit. He was a trickster. So there could be a lot of curveballs during Mercury retrograde, stuff you didn't see coming. So all of these things, trade, travel, technology, tariffs, right? Information, emails, text messages, the cellular towers could have glitches. All those things could happen during Mercury retrograde. There's potential for all of that. So when where it's in Pisces, it could be somebody was daydreaming and forgot to hit the correct buttons. It could be something that simple. But for us, and how you're trying to live your life, because you've got 2 weeks of shadow, then you've got 3 weeks of retrograde, 2 more weeks of shadow. This is a couple of months of your life that you have to figure out how it's going to go. So once again, key word for Mercury retrograde coming up is whatever. You're just going to have to sit back and say, oh, whatever, and blame it on Mercury and Gatorade, or whatever you want to call it. I think that's super funny. Mercury went into Gatorade or drank its Gatorade again. So you're going to have to just kind of expect that there might be glitches. So if you have in your head, I got to catch a flight, I've got a connection, I'm hoping for the best, but something could go wrong, there's potential for it, and then you have to say whatever. And instead of getting yourself all stirred up in a stew, you're going to have to say, all right, well, what am I going to do about this? And, even though Mercury's in Pisces, you're going to feel bullshit. Hey, you're going to have to be logical about it. You're going to have to say, well, that flight's not happening. What am I going to do? And who am I going to yell at? And who am I going to get my free voucher from? Because that's important too. Free stuff. Yeah. If you're, if you have this inconvenience. So, review things. So sit back and review any new decisions that you made over the last couple of weeks, because you might be like, oh, I don't know about that. I didn't think of this, or I didn't think of that. So if you think in your head of all the rewords, which include revise, renew, revitalize, relax, and chill. So Pisces is a sign that likes to withdraw, very sensitive, very watery, very emotional. Rules the 12th house. The 12th house is kind of the house of secrets. It's kind of the house of mental health. It's behind the scenes. So if you're working on any behind the scenes projects right now, that could really be some glitches, because Pisces does rule that behind the scenes stuff. But Pisces also likes to rest and renew and retreat and restore. So you have all these other opportunities, instead of charging forward with all your superb plans, which I'm sure you have them after this eclipse. You're just going to have to back off, sit down, and say, I got a little list here of things I need to reconsider. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So the beauty of astrology is that you can see these things coming and you have a heads up. Okay, so forearmed is forewarned, or forewarned is forearmed. I always get that mixed up. I don't have Mercury in Pisces, and I don't have Mercury retrograde in my chart. So forewarned is forearmed. I think that's how it goes. So the beauty of astrology is, if you know these things are coming, and you know that there's potential for glitches in emails and in the computers and in communication and technology and in travel, and in any major worldwide decisions involving trade and tariffs and things like that, you can say, well, they're going to make these decisions and watch what decisions are made on the global scale during Mercury retrograde. Because I would almost wager, and I'm not a betting person, but I would almost wager and bet that any big major decisions that are made during Mercury retrograde, that they're going to get reversed when Mercury goes direct. Maybe not right away, but there's going to be that 2 week shadow period. So look for things to turn around mid-April. And remember, I said mid-April is going to be something else. So that's when those turnarounds could happen. Decisions made during shadow, but more so during the retrograde period, and a little bit of that shadow period afterwards. They're going to kind of mosey along, and then all of a sudden, bang, in the middle of April. We're not doing that. What were we thinking? Okay. So look for that. Now, as far as how this could affect each sign, if you know where Mercury is in your astrological chart, you're going to take a look at that house, because that is the house that is going to be affected by Mercury being retrograde. Okay? So on this video, I said it really pertains to all signs, but you have to actually know where Mercury is in your astrological chart. So if you do know where Mercury is in your astrological chart, take a look at that house. And I'm just going to go through the houses briefly with my little cards here. So if you're not sure what that means, you can take a look and say, oh, I have Mercury in the ninth house. If you are traveling internationally and you have Mercury in the ninth house, or you're doing an international presentation on Zoom, there could be some glitches. If you are in theology and you're in religion and you're giving a sermon, the AV system might screw up. So that's kind of now ninth house stuff. So I'm just going to go briefly through these, because if you don't know where Mercury is in whatever house of your chart, it's not going to be super helpful to you. But if you do, then I'm just going to quickly go through these houses with you. All right. So we have the first house. Okay. That's the self, the body, your presence. So when you walk in the room, if you have Mercury in the first house, you're probably going to be pretty chatty. Okay. So know that whatever's coming out of your mouth, people are watching, because you walk in the door and you're already Mercury. So if Mercury is retrograde in your first house, you might be a little bit less chatty, but you also are going to have to be very clear. Everybody's going to have to be super clear with their communication with Mercury retrograde. So if you know that you have Mercury in the second house, okay? So this is about your finances, your value, your possessions. It's about your earning potential. So whatever job it is that you have, or whatever you do for work, let's say you are, well, it rules banking. It's ruled by Taurus. All the banking systems could go down, or the ATMs could go down, and people can't get their money out, and they're not delighted. That would be a Mercury retrograde thing in the second house. So Mercury retrograde in the third house. Now, this is the third house of Gemini, which Mercury rules Gemini. So this is communication, transportation, local communities. So if you're going over to the neighbor's house, or you're given going to some community event, the dates could get screwed up. Okay. Or if you're going over the neighbor's house, you thought you were supposed to come by for drinks after work or whatever, they're not home. Remember, what's the magic word for this Mercury retrograde? Whatever. You just reschedule. Try not to get too mad at people. And remember, Pisces is a very forgiving sign. So just think And I need to say this for myself because I get crazy with schedule changes. It's just I'm a recovering control freak. So I get crazy with schedule changes. But those are some things like a neighborhood event. They send an email out and the date was wrong. Okay. That's third house. Now, fourth house, communication. This is family. This is your roots, your foundation, your home life. Okay. So some stuff around the home life could get messed up. Your husband said, I'm coming home at whatever time, and he doesn't get home at that time, or you were supposed to do something for the house. The contractors, if you're getting work done on your house, all of a sudden the contractors just disappear. Doesn't that happen anyway? But Mercury retrograde is a great time for the contractors to disappear. All right. Fifth house. This rules fun, creativity, kids. So I just thought when I said this out loud, I thought the art supplies you were waiting for didn't get delivered in time. So that would be something that would happen around a fifth house, or a romantic partner. You get times, dates, messages, text messages. Make sure your text messages and emails are crystal clear. Do not go ba da 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 da, boom, hit send. Go ba da 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 da, and then look at it. Especially if it's a new romance. You don't want to mess that up with a stupid text message. Okay. So, sixth house. All right. You might have, sixth house is your day to day activities. If you're an employee, um, you might have miscommunicated something, or there's miscommunication at work. Uh, you're waiting for your test results to come back because it's also physical health. They got lost. Shocking. That happens when Mercury's not direct. I mean, when Mercury is direct, sorry. So things like that around your day-to-day activities, pets. Hopefully you don't have any pets go missing. And if they do, hopefully they will be back when Mercury goes direct. So these are the sort of things that kind of get all kerfluffled when Mercury is retrograde. Seventh house. Okay. Partnerships, open enemies. Okay. One-on-one relationships, marriage. Try to be crystal clear with your partner. Allow some grace in that department, because there could be miscommunications. Somebody was, in a fluff because they missed their flight. The hotels is another thing. You book a hotel, all of a sudden you get to the hotel, they don't have your reservation. Double check everything. Okay. If you're supposed to pick your partner up at the airport, double check the flight, double check that y'all got the times right. So there's a lot of double checking during Mercury retrograde. I mean, I do that most of the time. So, kind of double down on making sure of everything. Eighth house. Okay. If for some reason, I would not send my taxes in during Mercury retrograde. I'm just saying, that's just me. I'm not even going to look at my taxes until after March 20th. I mean, they're sitting here in a pile in those envelopes, and my taxes are a hot mess. I'm self employed, 2 states, 2 businesses, property. It's a mess. But I'm going to start doing them, but I'm not going to finalize anything until after Mercury goes direct. So eighth house is taxes. Um, it's death, it's rebirth, it's other people's money. So if you're trying to solicit other people's money during Mercury retrograde, make sure you're super clear as to what you want it for, and that you can show them that. And just know the paperwork might get lost. If you're applying for a mortgage, bless your heart. Now, when I say these things, people buy cars, people travel and get to places, people's hotel rooms are fine, their marriages are fine, their taxes are fine. Everything can be fine during Mercury retrograde, but there is potential for some fluffs, okay? Some things that just don't go as planned, curveballs. So, this is why just be aware. All right. If you have Mercury in the ninth house, I kind of already talked about this. If you're on Zoom doing an international presentation for people, Zoom could glitch. It could glitch on your end, it could glitch on their end, and Zoom can just glitch for no damn reason whatsoever. Okay, I was supposed to be on Mel Door's show a week ago, and Zoom just said, "Oh, no, you're not." So we're going to try again tomorrow night or Wednesday night or whatever day it is. Okay, so ninth house is about higher education. You might take some tests for your master's degree or PhD and they can't find them. It's an electronic test. We don't know what happened to those results. Now, it's super hard to say whatever when you studied hard for that exam. But these are just some ridiculous things that can happen during Mercury retrograde. 10th house. 10th house is your public life. If you're in management, CEO, any of those things, your reputation. So if you're doing any sort of public speaking, like what I'm doing right now, I'm just thinking to myself, oh man, anything could kind of be misconstrued that one could say on YouTube during Mercury retrograde. So all you YouTubers out there listening to this, just be super careful because you are in full blown in the public eye, okay, during Mercury retrograde, and there's potential for things like that. If you are a manager, you're in charge of some sort of company operation, be crystal clear with your directions for your underlings, your employees, the people below you. Make sure that you are super clear. And the other thing is if you weren't clear and you screwed this up, own it. Okay? Just own it. And hopefully everyone's going to say, whatever, we're just going to start all over again or whatever. Okay? Magic word, whatever. The 11th house. This is about groups. It's about the collective. It's about teamwork, networking. There's a collaboration. Okay. This is where you could set times for a YouTube collaboration and somebody got the dates wrong, the times wrong, the subject matter wrong. Just a miscommunication or a screw up. These are the things that could happen in, or the team all said, oh, we're going to go over to Chili's for after the game or whatever. And then at the last minute, they change the plans, or you get to Chili's and they're not open Monday night. Things like that. I that's happened to me before. I've been meeting people and we all get there and the restaurant's not open on, Mondays or Tuesdays. So these are some sort of things. Now, in the scheme of things, depending on what happens, it could be a big deal. It could be a royal pain in your ass and a lot of other people's asses for that matter. But if you have in your head, there's potential for these things, do the best you can to, dot every I, cross every T, read every contract through the shadow, back up, read it again, and read it one more time. Because there's potential for all of that. And right now, as I'm talking about Mercury retrograde, I can't find my 12th house. Here it is. I couldn't find my 12th house little cue card, so to speak. All right, so the 12th house. The 12th house is ruled by Pisces. Okay, it's about karma, shadow, secrets, behind the scenes. It's about mental health. So if you have Mercury retrograde in the 12th house, just stay home, hide, and pull that blanket over your head. If you're a Pisces, you want to do that anyway. You enjoy that sort of thing. My Pisces cats love to hide in my bed and under the covers. So that's your under the covers house in astrology. So, like I said throughout this little chat, the best part about astrology is you have a little bit of warning that this stuff is coming up and you can be ready for it. So, I know that in 2 or 3 days from now, there's potential for things to not quite go as planned. Um, Deep breath, whatever, let's try it again. It's not a lot of life threatening things. Pisces is super sweet energy. I love me some Pisces energy. Um, so yeah, it could be messy. There could be some curveballs. There's also There's also a full moon lunar eclipse on March 3rd with Mercury retrograde, and it's in Virgo and Pisces. So it could get super interesting. And I am going to do a video on that eclipse, and I will talk about that. And it's just kind of a crazy time on the planet right now. So what I'm going to just quickly do is I'm going to show you those dates again in case you missed them. So the shadow period for Mercury retrograde in Pisces, 212 to 225-ish. Okay, it goes retrograde 226 to 320. Depending on where you are, you can look up that time. All you got to do is Google. Google will tell you what time where you are. And then the shadow period on the other end is 320 to 49. So we've got a couple of months that things could potentially get a little goofy. Um, these are your areas that could be affected, the communication areas, any sort of couriers, um, post office, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, okay? Trade, commerce, travel. Know that there could be some curveballs because Mercury rules the tricksters, thieves, gamblers. Mercury is very witty, very agile. Gemini, all of those things. Okay. Know that this Mercury is going to be all these things. Okay, watery, very psychic, dreamy, sensitive, intuitive, dissolving the boundaries. It's not going to have those Gemini, Virgo, logical, we want to think this through. Pisces, Mercury, they want to feel things. They want to feel things. Okay. And just one more quick reminder here. Okay. These are the things that could potentially go on here. Okay. Zone out and feel instead. Those rosy colored glasses. Okay. Whole lot of talking going on and not saying too much. Mistakes, miscommunications, delays, um, rerouting, uh, roadblocks, construction, those sort of things too. Tech, your internet, crypto, Bitcoin, all that stuff could get a little crazy. Stock market, timing, glitches, dot every I, cross every T, and just remember what the magic word is for this Mercury retrograde. Okay. I want you to say it to yourself in the audience right now as you're listening. I'm going to say it right here. Whatever. So rewind, revisit, renew yourself, rest, okay, restore, relax, rewind, all of those things. You're going to revisit the first couple of weeks in all of February, really. So revisit all those grand plans you had for this new moon eclipse that we just had on February 17th. And then you can look at perhaps restructuring them after you've taken a little rest and sat back and said, is that really the direction I want to go? And don't be in a hurry to do anything. Okay. Just kind of take these 3 weeks coming up and just pay close attention to everything. Try to get those communications straight and sit back, contemplate things. And if the direction you're going in or thought you were going to go in, is that really what you want to do? Okay. So I'm Sabrina with Tree of Life Inner Guidance. All the videos on my channel are for spiritual and entertainment purposes only. If you do like this material, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. There are certain levels of subscribers that allow you to do different things on YouTube. And that's why the subscriptions are super important to us, and they don't cost you a thing like the video. We enjoy positive commentary that also helps the algorithms. So hopefully you're going to be just fine during this upcoming Mercury retrograde. You know, it's almost comical that I have to come on here and say yet another thing is going on in our crazy world today. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. And I'll be back in another day or two with a video on the upcoming solar eclipse full moon in Virgo, in case we haven't had enough fun yet this year in 2026. All right. Thank you everyone for being here. I hope you enjoyed the video, but more so, I hope you find this information helpful, and remember the magic word, whatever.